to win more.
Yeah, winning the first half doesn't count for a whole lot.
Sometimes that's all we can.
Hang your hat on
My problem with the Nebraska men's basketball team is that they don't play as a team. It's me. The women play as a team.
Not gonna say Nebraska teams to win anymore.
Hey, women's volleyball does fine until they face a team from a real place. You see, I gotta say stuff like this to tweak Mike because he still hasn't paid off his bet.
Listen, I'm so used to us living here.
All right, so anyone have anything interesting happen this week?
We like it calm,
That's good,
so we all have good weeks.
good, yeah. Interesting times are frequently distressing times. Fortunately, that wasn't the case this week. I got to see a couple of guys I hadn't seen since seminary graduation.
Wow. How big an area was represented?
Eastern border is Omaha, western border is Utah. Northern border is a little bit into South Dakota, southern border is Kansas, the southern border of Kansas, so fairly wide swath of the country. And then one of our speakers was from Western Washington, so
My goodness. And the Utah representative was there. Utah asked.
we have several ministers in Utah. Most of them were there, yeah. It was a lot of fun. Got to see one guy who I hadn't seen since his wedding. But one of the cool things about typical male friendships, doesn't matter if you haven't seen each other in a decade, you just pick right up where you left off. Having never had a female friendship, that being a female, I don't know that that's the case for women. I've been told it's not, but I can't speak with any certainty on what it's like to have a female friendship due to the fact I'm a dude. Caitlin, what are your thoughts? She's glaring at me.
Was there any word, Pastor, on how the family in Overland Park is doing, the pastor's family?
I talked to his associate briefly, and they're doing okay-ish. I think she had moved to be near her family.
That's what we were wondering. Which is not Overland Park.
No. Somewhere in Wisconsin, I believe. I think she's a pastor's kid. So.
Thank you.
Any other news from the district you would like me to report on? I got all the hot gossip.
Ever I get past it?
No.
We should be praying for them.
All right. Well, today we are going to talk about slavery. Who's excited? Demons. Oh, you are here? Wonderful.
You are,
Me?
yes, you are.
Is it because I make you slave for me?
Yeah.
We're looking at Genesis 39. Who wants to start reading for us? Okay.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, Potiphar the Egyptian, who was an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard, called Joseph from Mishmar, who was brought down to Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became successful. He served in the house of his master the Egyptian. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord considered him such success. Joseph found favor in his sight. Joseph cursed him, and he made Joseph manager of his household. He had Joseph in charge of everything.
And trying to talk to make a manager of his household in charge of everything that he had. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's household for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord rested on everything that he had, both in the house and in the fields. So he left Joseph in charge of everything that he had. He did not concern himself with anything but the food that he ate. Joseph was well built and handsome. Sometime after all this, his master's wife had her eye on Joseph, and she said, "Come lie down with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not concern himself with anything that has been entrusted to me in the house. He has put me in charge of everything that he has. He has no one in this house greater than I am, and he has not withheld anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such great evil and sin against God?" One day when he went into the house, he caught him by his garment and said, "Come lie down with me." He left behind his garment in his hand and ran outside.
When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had run outside, she called to the man of the house and said to them, "Look, my husband has gone." When he heard these things, he left his garment with him and laid down.
She kept his garment beside her until his master came home. This is what she told him: "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought to us came to me to put me to shame and said to me, 'Let me lie down with you.' And look, when I screamed and cried out, he left behind his garment with me and ran outside."
As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, saying, "This is what your servant did to me," he became very angry. Joseph's master took him and put him to the prison where the king's prisoners were confined. So Joseph was kept in prison there.
But the Lord was with Joseph. He showed mercy to him and gave him favor in the sight of the warden of the prison. The warden of the prison made Joseph responsible for all the prisoners who were in the prison. Responsible for whatever they did. The warden of the prison did not pay attention to anything that was under his authority, because the Lord was with Joseph. And the Lord made everything that he succeed.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on any of that?
I wonder why they, well, like in the King James Bible, if the relationship, they use the words, "come lie with me." And the NIV, it says have sex. Why did they go back? I mean, one of their reasons for NIV and this is to explain plainly what's happening. Why did they go back to this?
Having not been in the room when the translation was made, only thing I can do is guess. But I do know that Hebrew, the Hebrew language, is very, very similar to the English language. So I doesn't, well, rarely says sex as such. Hebrew tends to speak euphemistically about these things, and frankly, so do we. Lie with someone, sleep with someone, make love.
Yeah, when I was a little kid and we read this, I actually thought she just wanted him to tell a lie with her. So that's, nobody had to explain anything.
At the bottom of the page explains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming up that the Lord was with Joseph.
That does keep coming up. And that's something worth circling back to after we run through these questions, because there's not many questions there. Mike?
I guess I had to answer the question. How people knew that the Lord was with Joseph. People, other than he succeeded, it hardly correlate.
Well, the Egyptians wouldn't have cared one way or the other. The Lord being with Joseph is included more for our benefit than anything else, explaining why Joseph had success. All the Egyptians would have noticed is that, hey, this guy's pretty good at what he does. And would not have thought, his God must be with him. Maybe they did, but there's no indication.
They just thought he was an obedient servant who was, like you said.
Did a good job. Yeah, basically. Anything else?
Well, like I said, I think, and what you said, that they didn't see it as the Lord, they just, hey, this guy really knows his stuff. When you look down and what all happened, I think, he was more angry at his wife than he was, at Joseph. I think he knew his wife was like, he's losing a good man here, but he had a safe place to, that's my take on it.
That's an interesting take. I'd never thought about it that way. Having a wife who would never lie to me, I just always assumed that Potiphar trusted her. Right, Caitlin?
Anyway, that's my take on it.
No, that's an interesting one. It's actually one I hadn't considered, but if Potiphar was Chinese instead of Egyptian, that's almost certainly what would have happened. The face saving and the doing what appears to be the right thing, even if you don't necessarily think it is the right thing to do. That's a very Chinese thing. Anything else? Let's take a look at the 6 questions I've got prepared. These should go pretty quickly, then if anything else comes up, we can discuss it. And if not, we can treat ourselves to some of Nancy's delicious cookies. So, first of all, what was special about Joseph's master? Yep, he was the leader of Pharaoh's guard. the Secret Service of the Egyptians, this was the guy. So how did God show his favor to Joseph? You're both correct. He was with him, blessed him with many talents. Every decision he made went well. Reminds me a lot of me.
Now you're talking.
I am.
Yeah, I have a question though about it, was that normal for an Egyptian type person to entrust everything to a servant like that? Is that a normal thing?
Have you ever heard of the Peter Principle?
People rise to the level of their incompetence.
Yes. That tends to happen. People tend to get promoted until they find the level of their own incompetence. For example, speaking for myself, do not misunderstand, I want none of this. None of it. I would refuse if it were offered. But as a pastor, when you gain a certain level of respect among your peers, they elect you to be their circuit pastor, go around, give advice, help out with things going on in the area. Then, if you're good at that, maybe you'll get a position on the district board somewhere to help advise what's happening in the district. Then maybe you get put at district president to oversee everything that's going on in one of the 12 districts. Then, if you're good at that, maybe you get promoted all the way to president of the Senate. Thing is, not many people rise that high because they find the level of their incompetence. I was waiting for Mike to say something like, we've already found yours.
I get to the highest.
Well, yeah, but my point was that the kind of things that Egyptians?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Trust, but basically a slave or a servant.
Well, Nancy, think about it. If you're rich and you have a job that requires a bunch of your duties, a bunch of your attention, a bunch of your time, and you have someone you can pass off part of your non-work related duty to, and they show they can handle it, you would pass it off over and over again until you got to the point where the only thing you were concerned about is what you ate.
What's that, you know, it probably didn't happen just overnight.
Oh, of course not.
Well,
He was a slave, I mean, Martha brought him in thinking, hey, I got a slave kid here. Read my folders, and Joseph proved himself, and then I'm sure Potiphar checked him out by, scenarios to see if he's truthful. And that's why he got him ahead and everything, that he was run through the test, say.
Mhm.
Well, the Egyptians were kind of picky people about, well, like they wouldn't eat with the Jews. They're dirty.
Look, I was saying, even before, you talk about level of country. Masters is pretty sharp on what it comes to very well.
Mhm.
So the judge of people is pretty good. I would say. So why he selected Joseph? We don't, was it over a period of time that Joseph got to that point, or did, when he selected Joseph, it's ready to the body? It's God's intervention. It's always God's intervention.
Well,
If you understand what I'm saying, there's a reason why Joseph was selected.
think about it this way. How many of you served in the military? I never have. But I've known enough military men in my life to know a few things. Potiphar, military man, right? The captain of the guard, that's a military position. That's not a political one. So, in my experience, men who have served in the military become very self-sufficient, but are also pretty good at delegating things, right? Because they're used to it. They have to do that. They expect a chain of command. I am at the top of this. I tell you to do something, you do it. And because they're used to delegating things, they're pretty good at recognizing talent among the people they delegate things to. They learn quickly who they can trust and who they can't. Correct? I imagine Potiphar. Again, this is conjecture, but the way it played out in my mind was Potiphar thought to himself, I could use some more help around the house. Oh, here comes some Midianites with some slaves. Yeah, I'll take them, see how it works out. And it started working out real well, started working out amazingly well. And he kept bumping Joseph up the line because he recognized talent. It was, for all intents and purposes, a meritocracy. Joseph merited promotion, so he kept receiving that promotion. And Joseph merited the promotion because the Lord was with him.
God bless him. Which in the long run is a very good thing, because once he reached the authority to, looking ahead to get through the famine years, he became a good manager that eventually had big,
February 20th, we will speak of this.
not till the 20th.
On the 6th, we have a council meeting, and there's a chapter intervening. So the 13th, we talk about Joseph in prison. Sorry for the spoiler. And then the 20th, we will get to Pharaoh's dreams. So why did Joseph refuse his master's wife's advances?
He said he could not sin against God.
That's the key. Ethically speaking, there are a few things dumber than sleeping with your boss's wife. But on top of that, look, I wouldn't just be doing something stupid. Personally, I'd be sinning against God himself. I can't do that. So how'd that end up backfiring for Joseph?
I think he made Potter's wife very curious, and she wanted to get that.
Do you know any truly rich people? Like the kind of people who, if they felt like it could just live a lavish lifestyle anywhere they wanted to? We know, well, knew at least a few. And they don't like the word no. They don't like to be told they're wrong. And this woman was clearly accustomed to getting whatever she wanted. And when she got told no, it offended her in a visceral way. So how do you suppose you would have reacted in Joseph's place? Falsely accused of attempted rape, thrown in prison in a country that's not your own, forced to serve a sentence for a crime you didn't commit. Sounds like a TV show, doesn't it?
Yeah, locked up abroad.
I was thinking the A-Team, but what can I say? I just had a classic case. Are you mocking the A-Team? You best not be. How do you suppose Joseph gained favor in prison?
Money get anywhere else?
How's that?
Faithful, bright eye, pay attention. Obedient.
One of the failings of the American prison system is that there are a lot of prisoners sitting around with nothing to do. The Egyptian prison system had what one could argue is the opposite failing. Prisoners weren't locked in their cells 24/7. They were working. They were working every day. And Joseph worked hard, did good work. So he got put in charge of a few other prisoners, supervised their work. And those tasks went well, and so on, and so on. The Bible doesn't tell us specifically what Joseph did, but we know how Egyptian prisoners were treated, so we can safely assume that's what happened. Now to get back to Carol's point. It says over and over and over again that God was with Joseph. Put yourself in Joseph's shoes. And then tell me his story. Put yourself in Joseph's shoes and tell me his story.
God, why did you let this happen?
More or less, think about it. What were Joseph's failings? He tattled on his brothers once. Had a couple of dreams that made it sound like he was going to be an adoption. His dad loved him more than any other. Only one of those was actually Joseph's fault. He could have controlled the tattle. The dream came from God. The favor came from his father. And because Joseph was, let's face it, largely innocent, that didn't matter. His brothers still sold him as a slave instead of killing him, which was the better outcome, but let's face it, we're talking a matter of degrees. It's not that much better. But he makes the best of his slavery. Ends up in charge of the household of a very powerful man, only to be falsely accused of attempted rape. And is thrown in prison for that. Does that story, that little tale I just told, sound like the tale of someone whom God is with? Or does that sound like the tale of someone who God is stomping into the ground? Without the benefit of hindsight, without the benefit of the God's eye view of the world, we would have said, man, this guy really made God mad. But that's not the case, is it? And that's instructive. for how we view our lives.
All right, Charlie.
You only got a little bit of the picture. The rest is coming. But you're not gonna see it till it's too late. Anything further on this?
I always thought, when Joseph's brothers stolen slavery, that's still murder, right? I would assume to be a slave, your length of life was probably fairly short.
Depends. Someone like Joseph, no, he probably would have lived a good long life. As a slave, sure. But as an important slave, people take care of things that are useful to them. And whether it's your tools, your cooktops, or the people you hire, as long as someone's useful, you'll be taken care of.
Well, that, from what we hear of slavery in the US, that wasn't the case. It is.
Comparing biblical slavery to the atrocities that our forefathers inflicted on a group of people is an apples to atom bombs comparison.
And that's my first an understanding of slavery and how horrible that was. It wasn't any picnic being a slave in Egypt as time goes on.
Oh, it wasn't easy. Let's not minimize what these people went through. But with the exception of the enslavement of the Jews by the Egyptians, slavery in biblical times was almost never anything to do with your race or anything specifically about you indelibly. What it normally was a way to pay off the debt. Selling someone into slavery was the ancient world's bill collectors. You couldn't pay off a debt? Okay, I'm going to sell you as a slave and recoup whatever I can of the debt you owe me in that way. Or you're gonna come work for me, you're gonna be my slave until your debts are repaid. It was a result of something bad happening financially instead of having the misfortune of a genetic accident affecting the color of your skin.
That's a good distinction.
Sometimes when they go to war, it's captives and turn them into slaves
Yeah,
as a way of taking care of
no. Even in that case, it has nothing to do with who they are genetically, more a function of being a prisoner of war. That is an important distinction to draw because you will hear arguments like this made by people who've read 17 words of scripture and think they understand it all. Historical context is key. Anything else? All right. Let's pause here. We'll pick it up on the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Ruth?